you guys have built a strong culture of your values and beliefs. Can you give me some ideas of what that looks like?
It's only in a value and belief if it's in every part.
Where does that manifest itself?
It's not only on the baseball field. I believe in competition. I think competition is central, to the ability to win and understand what it takes to win. They don't not only transcend baseball, but they transcend life. I think you need to be above a certain talent threshold. It's required to play at this level. But what makes the guy that's above the talent threshold improve that much more or get that much better in his time? That competitive piece. Like Nick's one of the most competitive people I've ever been around.
You don't want to miss this one. This is going to be great. Coach Cilento, thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Oh, man, I've been looking forward to coming down here and meeting you and talking to you. We're going to talk about culture, one of my favorite subjects. I got to start with a story that you don't know that'll lead us right into this. My son came here on a visit. It was in 2010. You weren't here yet, right?
I was here. No, 2009. We came in the fall 2009.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were just brand new here. Well, we sat in. It was a junior day. He was only a sophomore. And it was so impressive. I mean, everything you guys were doing, I'm just sitting there as a dad going, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I mean, kids were coming in from all over the country. I mean, some of them were wearing suits. It was impressive, right? And I don't think my son would mind me telling you this story, but when we walked out, I said, that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And he said, Dad, I'm not ready for this. And my heart sank because he wasn't ready for that level of culture that you guys had already started building here. So let's just jump right in. And I'd like to get your idea or concept when you say culture. Give me a little idea of what you're talking about.
When you're talking about culture, you're talking about beliefs and values, and those evolve over time. And I think they change from year to year. You get different dynamics. World now where, you talk about teams and your program, and it's so interchangeable, the players now. The portability of the transfer portal, you got junior college players, you got older players, you have kids that are 17, you have kids that are 24. So I think, when I think about culture and environment, it's your values and beliefs and how you live.
So let me kind of put you on the spot. You guys have built a strong culture of your values and beliefs. Can you give me some ideas of what that looks like? Where does that manifest itself? Like, what are some of the values? What are some of the beliefs?
Well, first, it manifests itself everywhere. Okay. It's only in a value and belief if it's in every part. It's not only on the baseball field. It's in the, community. It's not only in the community, it's in the classroom. But some of those values and beliefs, one, I believe in competition. I think competition is central, to the ability to win and understand what it takes to win. Competition is central to that. And I think it's one of the separators too in today's world. I think all of the players that we coach now have grown up in the select model environment. In the select model environment, you go in, you pitch your 2 innings, you get your 2 at-bats.
You're talking about like travel baseball.
Travel baseball.
Okay.
And there's great perks to that from exposure, to kind of playing with guys from all over the country. You're not only confined to guys just in your local town, but I think one of the gives in that is the components of winning and what that takes. And I think they don't not only transcend baseball, but they transcend life. So if you talk about me, why I do what I do, I think, I coach baseball because it's my vehicle to help build guys or help guys on their path to becoming, great human beings along the way and learn the values that it takes to win in life.
When you're talking about competition and you're talking about travel ball, we're going to be bouncing all over because, like you said, this touches all things. But when you're talking about competition and winning, are you zeroing in on that when you're watching kids? There's all these tools that everybody talks about, arm and exit speed, but that's almost like an intangible, wouldn't you say, when you're watching that?
Without a doubt. I mean, I like this is the way I look at teams. It's the way I look at players. I think you need to be above a certain talent threshold. It's required to play at this level. But what makes the guy that's above the talent threshold improve that much more or get that much better in his time? What makes the guy, like for an example, a guy like Nick Kurtz was on a high school team where there was another, high-end draft, multiple drafts on it. He went undrafted. What makes a guy like Nick Kurtz get into an environment and go from a good player to hopefully be the AL Rookie of the Year? There's a lot of components to that, but I think it's what you're talking about. It's that makeup piece, that competitive piece. Like Nick's one of the most competitive people I've ever been around. If you're playing cards with him, he's trying to, like, he does nothing without trying to win. And at the end of the day, you don't control whether or not you win or not. You do control if you take the steps necessary to win. Give yourself the best chance.
The effort to win. Yeah. Now, I'm going to keep putting you on the spot all day because that's why I drove here, because you are the man for these answers. Do you think in a Nick Kurtz or all these kids that you've coached that are super competitor, do you think that's born or do you think that's developed?
I think it's a combination of two. I think apple trees make apples. Yeah. So I think the environment you grow up in is certainly a factor in that. I think it's one of the reasons you have the debate all the time. Hey, do you play multiple sports or not?
Mm-hmm.
I think sports like football teach you that competitive piece better than we can even teach in baseball at times, or hockey, or some of those things. But I think it can be cultivated. You know, if you walked around our clubhouse that we're in right now, every room, you're going to see forms of competition, from cornhole in our clubhouse to shuffleboard in our lounge to ping pong to even video games. I think, you know, look, everybody, you know, kind of doesn't love the video game world where you're sitting inside and you're pretty sedentary. I get that piece, but there is a valuable component to it of competition, and you're learning how to win, and you're learning what it takes to win and the sacrifices that are necessary inside of that. So I think there's a part of it that's born, or a part of it's in you based on your environment, but I think there's a part of it that can be brought out of you too. So, and I think the environment is key to that.
Okay. So I want to keep this on the positive side today, but sometimes I like to talk about some of the downsides of this. So have you had kids here, because this is the highest level of college baseball, that weren't ready to compete and they didn't survive here?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't put it as survive. Okay. I think in every college environment now, because of the portability of transfer portal, everybody seeks opportunity. And here's the truth. You don't know if you're getting better if you're never tested in the game. You have to go to the test. So have we had kids that maybe didn't get enough of that test? Without a doubt, I think every program has. Have we had kids that the competition has challenged them so much that they've struggled with it and struggled to find their identity within it? Without a doubt. I think you try and be cognizant of that. I think every kid is different. You know, Nick Kurtz, the highly competitive. We've also had kids that aren't quite as competitive. And how do you mesh them together? That's what the culture and environment really is. Like, can you mesh all those pieces together? I think about, you know, it just comes to mind because it kind of floated across Twitter or X, whatever it's called right now, the Brewers, right? And Pat Murphy, and they did the big, you know, kind of MLB Network did a big thing on Pat Murphy. And he talked about a lot of those intangibles and each guy finding their role within it. And it makes me think of that right away. So I think you're always trying to find those niches, find those roles within it. But sure, I mean, I think the environment, you try and do everything you can on the front end to make sure you get the kind of kids. I think in the recruiting process, at least for me, what I do is I put out there who I am, who we are as a program over and over and over and over again. I try and do it as relentlessly as can be. So you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. So it shouldn't happen. But look at 17 to 21-year-old, 17 to 24-year-old, I guess, males, things change. Yeah. So yeah, certainly could it happen? Without a doubt. Do I think it happens less than most? I do.
It almost happened to my son. I don't mean to keep telling all my son's stories, but you know, he went to Ole Miss out of college, and I mean out of high school, and he got down there I don't think he'd mind me telling this story either. He gets down there his freshman year. We're from Central Pennsylvania. You know, we're not in SEC territory. You know, he wasn't seeing that kind of competition. He gets down there, struggles in his fall, and Cliff Godwin calls me up. I was pretty good friends with him, and he says, "Hey, let me ask you a question. Has Christian ever had to scratch and crawl and claw and battle for a position?" And I honestly said, "No, I don't think so." And he, you know what he said? He goes, "I can tell." He goes, "We got a junior here that I wanted him to come down here and beat this kid out, but he's sort of happy playing behind this kid, and he's not really competing for the spot." What a wake-up call that was for me. Now, luckily for Christian, he did seem to figure it out, because midway through the spring season, he ended up starting down there. But he didn't get down there with his mentality, I'm here to compete and take somebody's position. He was happy to be there.
Yeah, no, but I think he needed that.
He did need that, but he never had it coming through. Maybe that was my fault. I don't know what you do, but you got to learn to compete somewhere along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's ways to do it, but I think, and I'll talk about that in a sec, but I think that was a necessary part of his growth. I think it's why you need to be around trusting people. In your case with Cliff, you had a prior relationship. Well, you get around trusting people and they can challenge you and you can fail a little bit.
By the way, he told me I wasn't allowed to tell Christian about that conversation. He wanted Christian to figure, he didn't want Dad, hey, you better start competing. So I never said a word to Christian about it.
Sure. He failed, right? He got to fail a little bit. You trusted Cliff enough. You trusted Ole Miss enough.
Yeah.
He battled through it. And it's why he became the player he became.
Right.
So then the next question is, well, looking back, how do you do that? How can you insert? Well, like I think the model, right? We don't need as much exposure. Why don't we challenge our kids more? We do a lot of things here when they get here, but if we can do it prior to them, like if you're a high school kid, can you go face college pitching somewhere? Everybody's trying to throw live at bats here, there, or everywhere. And I think you have to do hard a lot so that you figure out where your weaknesses are and you can attack them. Yeah. It's got to be learning. Like, how can you seek feedback to get better and better and better?
Well, that brings, and I don't mean to jump into your values, but I'm pretty sure another value is handling the failure of the game, the maturity of these kids, because you come here and you're going to face some adversity. So when you're watching kids and they seem like they're struggling, let's say at the high school level with, they make an error and they're kicking the dust and stuff. Is that a little bit of a red flag because, of the ability to handle the adversity of this game? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, it's all responses, right? I mean, I think that's life. It's responses. A lot of times you're dealt cards you don't control. Yeah. And sometimes it's just a simple mistake. Those are all responses. I think you have to make an evaluation. There's a maturity to that. I think if you make assumptions that this kid is a bad kid or he can't handle that, I think you're failing to kind of understand the whole situation. So I think you have to figure out who the kid is. I think it takes a deeper dive. Does it make you ask some more questions? Without a doubt. But am I going to eliminate a kid because of it? No, I think there's a maturity in it. Like I look back at when I was 15, 16, 17, I'm sure I didn't respond in a lot of the right ways, but I learned to. So are you willing to learn? Are you willing to take the feedback? Are you willing to seek the feedback and get better from it? Some of our better players, when they came in here, they didn't have great responses when they were freshmen.
Interesting.
Partially because, exactly like you're talking about with Christian, they hadn't failed.
Mm-hmm.
When you're the best player, you don't fail a lot.
Right.
So you have to learn how to respond.
Right.
So one of the questions I'd ask you is, if the kid's an excellent responder, has he just failed so much that maybe he's not the right guy? Right?
That's true. Yeah.
I think there's two sides to that story. Yeah. And I think that is the goal in it. Can you figure out the kids that have that growth mindset, that they're going to learn from it and they're going to learn to use it to their advantage?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we've kind of covered in your values and beliefs, we've covered competition and we've covered some adversity, some maturity. Give me another one that you think is really important.
Well, I think you need to be well-rounded.
Okay.
I don't think you can be just a baseball player.
Okay.
I think if you are, you burn out in this game. Every kid I've been around that it's been just baseball all the time, they've struggled.
Baseball's my life. And that's kind of scary.
Scary. They eventually that catches up to you. So, I think about like the kids I want to coach. The kids I want to coach, our tagline here is make them feel you. Make them feel you.
Make them feel you.
And make them feel you isn't just about how we play baseball. Yeah. It is about how we play baseball. Yeah. But it's also about how we go out in the community and how we interact with people.
You're talking about like community outreach?
I am. Like a great example is yesterday we had a 14-year-old come over. We ended practice early, took time right out of practice for a 14-year-old kid who just, had a Make-A-Wish, brought a kid over to kind of interact. And our kids, literally, I was on the phone talking to a recruit at 7:00 last night. That event started at 5:00. It was done at 6. 7:00 last night, I look out on our field. One of our players is out there playing catch with the kid. I think that's important.
Yeah.
I think it's why our fan base and the people around here have an emotional connection to baseball that maybe they don't have in some other sports, because our kids make them feel you in the community. I think it's also important, in every aspect, even in the classroom, how you go about everything. So, make them feel you is a big part of everything that we do. But I think what it entails is being well-rounded and intentional with every interaction that you have, whether it's in sport, whether it's in the community, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in life later on.
So let me interrupt you on that one, because you're getting probably two different kids. You're getting kids that maybe were groomed for that throughout their life. Maybe their parents were, like, even the kids that I'm working with, I'm really encouraging that. So that's an easy transition for them. But you're probably getting some kids that maybe never were a part of that. Have you noticed that you've had both, and when they get here, it's like a new world for them?
Yeah, I think so. And I think you have all kinds of personalities. You have kids that are really internal, right?
Yeah.
You have kids that are really external. It's very easy for.
Yeah.
I think of a kid like Kevin Jordan. Kevin Jordan, was in our first recruiting class here, and it kind of went viral. Coach Walter gave a kidney to Kevin.
Yeah.
Kevin was the quietest, most internal kid ever.
Mm.
Well, now he's giving speeches in front of 5,000 people. So I think that there's a growth in that I think is really cool to see, and you can go on down the list of players. I mean, he's an easy example because he went from very internal to very outgoing, but I think there's a growth in that. I think we have, I think we have to be able to be adaptable to kids that have all kinds of backgrounds.
Coach, I hear you guys talking so much about being a great teammate. And I really want to peel that onion back a little bit and get your feedback and opinion on what makes up a great teammate. So can you touch on that?
Well, I think there's a lot of components.
Yeah.
I think it's often misunderstood.
Okay.
I think so many times people think great teammate, they think the rah-rah, I think one of the qualities of a great teammate is someone who can hold somebody else accountable, someone who can push you.
Yeah.
A great example I can give you in our program is we had a kid by the name of Justin Johnson. Justin Johnson was a transfer from Lafayette. We had him for 1 year. Our 23 team that went to Omaha, we had a freshman shortstop, a kid by the name of Merrick Houston. And Merrick was a really good player. He was a first rounder this past year. But at the end of the day, Justin Johnson made Merrick the player, or helped make Merrick the player he became, because of the way he pushed him on a day-to-day basis and held him accountable.
Now, did they know each other, or did they just have chemistry when he got here?
They had chemistry when he got here, but Justin showed up and just the work ethic was through the roof. He's one of those guys that was purple at the end of practice, would dive 17 to 20 times, which you don't see.
Right.
So he pushed Merrick. And here's the cool thing about when we tie this to culture and environment. The best cultures and environment are player-led. Justin helped lead by example. So what made him a great teammate, he could hold him accountable. He didn't hold him accountable by yelling at him every day.
Yeah.
He didn't hold him accountable by making him feel bad, hazing him by the way he worked at it every day. And he held him accountable by making, kind of sly comments to him that were kind of those half-truths, break chops.
Right.
So I think accountability is a big part of that. I think being able to get out of yourself and get into the team, when you talk about a teammate, the really good teammates, it's about how does the team respond. So it's not about your individual successes. Think about a guy like Nick Kurtz. Again, Nick Kurtz, he could be 0 for 4 and we win. It didn't matter. Great teammate, because it was always about the team.
Right.
Think about other guys that we've had, from a right-hander that we had. So I don't want to use his name because he's in our program right now, but a right-hander we had that from the moment I met him, the first thing he would say is every single time is just win, baby. It just was never about him.
Right.
And I think that's a quality of a great teammate. You never let it be about you.
Yeah.
So I think those are two really, really key parts to it. I think the other part about a good teammate is being there.
Yeah.
Are you there when somebody else struggles? Are you there? Or are you only there when that guy has success?
Yeah.
I think there's a consistency in that matters. I think consistency is a great quality of a teammate.
Okay. So another one that I hear you guys talking a lot about is being unselfish. Mm-hmm. And the opposite of that, of course, is being selfish. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm trying to take the high road, but I think a lot of people maybe don't understand when they're doing certain things that they are being selfish. And I want our listeners to understand there are certain things that kids do that we need to maybe correct or adjust because they're bringing all the attention on themselves. I'll give you an example. Maybe you have another example. But if I see a kid that strikes out and he has bad body language and he goes in the dugout, tosses his stuff, walks to the end of the dugout, sits down all by himself, and it's kind of woe is me. And he stays in that mode. I mean, I understand if you strike out and you're upset, maybe you don't want to, high five everybody. I get that, but it's almost like it's about me now. I mean, what have you noticed some things that you would want to correct somebody if they were doing something that you deemed as selfish.
Yeah, no, without it. Well, in that example is a great example. Like, I think it should sting a little bit that you struck out.
Right.
Right. I think you need to be selfish in that regard. However, your response is what matters.
Right.
How quickly can you get out of yourself and get in the team? Why that example is a big deal is now you have an impact on your team. And not to get too crazy about you. I think there's an energy about everything that happens.
Right.
And when you bring that negative energy over time, other people see that.
Yeah.
Other people feel that. There's nothing worse than, for a great example, as a pitcher that goes out on the mound and you have a bad at bat.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that guy doesn't believe you're there for him.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I think you have to be very, very careful. I think you need to be really selfish with your player development. How do you get better? You better be into yourself there, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things you can do as a teammate, make yourself the best version of yourself.
Right.
However, when you play the game, you better be very unselfish.
Right. Right. So how about a kid that bunting situation needs to give up in a bat to get a bunt down, and you clearly see that he does not like that. He wants to swing away. No, I mean, I know hitters want to hit.
I use that example every day in
Do
BP.
you? Okay.
We bunt during BP.
Yeah.
And when you won't put in the necessary effort, what are you telling everybody in the ballpark? It's about me.
Yes. Yes. So if you were out scouting and saw that behavior, that could be a red flag, right? The reason I'm bringing up red flags is because I have this thing called a yeah, but. You guys are out and millions of times have said to me, I like this kid, but. And that but is always something like, but I don't know if he can handle the failure, but I'm not sure about his body language, but is he a little selfish? You'll throw these out at me and I'm just sitting there. That's my job as the coach or as the parent to start zeroing in on the things that are little red flags and try to eliminate them. So if I was coaching a kid and I see him throwing a hissy fit because I'm giving him the bunt sign, I'm going to pull him aside and say, number one, you got to give it up for the team. But number two, this guy's watching you. They don't like that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, well, but that's a word my wife uses when she gives me the yeah, but that's when I know I'm in trouble. But without a doubt, like, I think those are huge red flags. Like, gone are the days where if there'd be tough love with that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So in my day, when you played and you did that, when I played for the best coaches,
mm-hmm.
They would take me out of the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That Brewers documentary makes me think of right away. Sal Frelick missed a cutoff man. Pat Murphy pulled him in the 6th inning. I think that's the golden coaching. Can you hold the line?
Yeah.
To eliminate those behaviors that aren't the right behaviors, but still have enough trust and love for the kid to help get him to the other side.
Right. Yeah. So now you bring up another subject that we just have to talk about because we're talking about culture. And you mentioned about back in the day, tough love. What's the culture like here as far as tough love? Like how hard? I mean, there are some programs I think they've pulled so far back on that just because kids are like, you're going to treat me like that, or I'm not even talking about disrespectful. I'm pushing a kid hard. I don't want to be pushed. They leave. So how do you guys handle the tough love getting on a kid in today's culture?
Well, I think it's all relationships.
Yeah.
So I'm going to dive into our kids. Like, look, if there's a trust factor in there, and if you don't trust me or if you don't trust how we're going about it, it's real easy. You get a little tough love, you jump in the portal. If you trust me, you know that my intent is to get you to make you the best version of yourself, the other side of it.
Yeah.
You dive into it. The best players seek the feedback. The best players want to get coached that way.
Right.
I think the best teams have players that treat each other that way.
Right.
So by tough love, you're talking about all you're doing is talking about telling somebody the truth.
Right. Right. But sometimes it comes across a little abrasive.
And that's the delivery, right?
Yeah.
That's where we all can get better.
Yeah.
What's the mechanic?
Right.
There's the delivery of it.
Right.
But the best players, they want the truth.
Right.
Right. And that's where you live in. If you tell people the truth, and you treat people right.
Yeah.
Look, I think people see that over time.
Yeah. I was at I won't mention the school, but I was there and we had a kid that was really good, but he was a little cocky, a little arrogant. And the head coach pulls me over and we were playing a scrimmage and he pulls me aside and he says, I want you to get on this kid. I mean, really get on him. I'm like, about what? He goes, I don't care. Just make something up. So I'm coaching third base in this scrimmage. He takes a fastball right down the middle. I'm like, okay, this is my opportunity. I would never normally do this.
Sure.
I call him down. get down here. This is right in front of the head coach. And I'm getting on the case, on this kid's case. And he's going, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I said, now get in there and swing the bat. And he runs back into the batter's box. I look over at the head coach and he goes like this. He wanted to see how this kid responded. And it wasn't even fair. Like, he had a right to probably go, coach, why are you on my case? But that was a test and he passed the test, luckily.
I bet you it's a really successful program that you were talking about.
It is. It is. And he loved this kid, but he had to see that side of him.
Yeah. And I think it's a great lesson for the kid.
Yeah.
We're not always right as coaches.
I did tell him afterwards.
Yeah, we're far from right, sometimes, right? You're not always right.
Yeah.
The world isn't right.
Yeah.
And you got to learn how to respond in those scenarios.
Right.
Everybody gets dealt crazy hands.
Right. Right.
You never know what that's going to look like. I think there's a valuable lesson in that.
Yeah.
That kid learned that day. And more importantly, I think that's probably a pretty successful head coach and pretty successful program.
Yeah.
Because they were willing to challenge a kid.
Yeah. 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 It was pretty funny when I pulled him aside and I said, look, I got to be honest with you. That was all a big setup. I'm happy to tell you, you passed the test, but I would never, and you talk about the relationship, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I had the relationship to get away with that.
Sure.
Now, if I didn't, he may not have handled that too well.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
like, relationships take time.
Yeah.
And you probably had time with that kid.
I did. Lots of time.
That kid had the trust.
Yeah.
It'd be like me doing that on day one with one of our players.
Right.
It probably wouldn't go over so well.
Right. Right. I was at another practice, and tell me if this could ever happen here. There's another Division I school, very, very successful. They're having an inter squad. Kid hits a line shot to the shortstop and doesn't run it out. The coach went nuclear. He went ballistic. He called the entire team in. And I mean, he was just going off, and it was all about effort in his, he hated that this kid didn't sprint down there. So, I mean, what do you think about something like that?
Yeah. So I think very, very value system driven.
Yeah.
Right. It's process based over result based.
Yeah.
So I think in this scenario, that coach, there was a process that he wanted to make sure and that's, we're going to run hard all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I think there is some eyewash, right?
Yeah.
If a kid to the line drives, the kid catches the ball to continue to sprint to first base. There's a little eyewash in that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think it's a fine line, but what I think that coach was trying to do in that scenario that I love is he's trying to make sure everybody understands what the value system is.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And he's willing to stop practice.
Yeah.
Stop the inter squad from happening.
Yeah.
To make sure everybody understands what it is.
Yeah. All right, Coach. Another subject I really wanted to jump into with you is this whole idea of accountability, another value, another belief, and how it pertains to your development program here at Wake. What can you tell me about that?
Well, I mean, I think accountability is central to it. How do you hold someone accountable? I think accountability is a two-way street. I think our players need to hold each other accountable, or multiple facets, I guess. They got to hold our coaches accountable. Our coaches got to hold our players. Like, for our program to work, everybody's got to be held accountable. Again, it gets back to trust. There's got to be trust in there so that accountability can happen in a way that's non-threatening. But I think it's accountability is central to it. We do it in a variety of ways. We put standings, for example, on every day. We compete every day.
So like you rank, like when you say standings, like 1 through 35 or
1 through 34.
Okay.
Right? And literally you get a win or a loss every day.
Wow. Okay.
We put standings in. If you think about how we grade out our players, and how we try and figure out, where they stand compared to the peers, we rate them compared to other SEC or SEC and ACC component, or, partners.
So like with quality at bats, would that be a competition?
Yeah.
Do you do that? So you look up on a chart and you see you're in the bottom third of quality at bats, you know where you stand.
Yep.
Okay. So you're being held accountable there against your peers. Okay.
Batting practice.
Yeah.
Steal breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can go down lists. We
Wow.
we have accountability in every measure. The careful piece that you need to be is you can track and hold, have standings on everything. But if you do that and you get so broad with it,
Yeah.
what do you really stand for, right? We try and be very simple with it, quality bat. So we have a hitter shove score. Basically, it encapsulates a lot of things that we value, and we rank them in that regard. Quality at bats is inside of that.
Yeah.
Batting practice every single day. How you defend, right? We chart in batting practice every single day the number of ground balls you feel, How are your error, where do your errors come from? Are they throwing? Are they fielding? Do you dive? How many dives do you have on a day-to-day basis? How many LOEs, lack of efforts, do you have on a day-to-day basis?
So somebody is judging that.
Somebody is judging that.
Wow. And that's sort of a subjective thing in a way. I mean, there's no stopwatch to judge that one. That's somebody going, yeah, I think you could have put forth a better effort on that one. I'll give you an X on that one.
You know who judges it the most now? Our own players.
Yeah, well,
they want to call out their teammates on it in a great way.
Yeah.
So you'll hear our players yell across the diamond all the time, LOE, LOE.
Well, not to digress, but my son was on the USA Baseball coaching committee one time to pick some kids, and one kid didn't make the team. And this is a true story. He told me this. He didn't really hustle over on a foul ball. He's playing left field to make the play. Took the play off in the meeting. They brought it up, and the guy says, yeah, I don't want to go to Tokyo with kids that aren't putting forth an effort in every play. So, young kid. Well, what a tough lesson to learn.
It's a tough lesson to learn. Without a doubt, that, again, it gets back to values. One of the cool parts about USA, I've been fortunate to coach with. One of the cool parts is that they take a well-rounded player. Yeah. So they demand that of you. Yeah. One would hope that that kid could learn the lesson, still get the opportunity.
Yeah, I think there were a few other. It wasn't just one play.
Yeah, no doubt.
That was the one the guy said. He really remembered, and it just stood out to him. So I never heard of LOE, but I'm going to start using that one. That's a good one. Let's talk about things like hydration and sleep and nutrition. Are you guys tracking that?
Yeah, I mean, we try and do the best we can. Again, there's some fine lines with it, with what we can actually get from HIPAA as coaches, but our strength coach, we use things like Whoop straps. I mean, I got a Whoop strap on right now.
And that does what?
So it tracks all of that stuff, sleep.
Really?
What it gives you is a recovery score. And I think it's one of the best behavior modifying, tools I've used, at least for me. Everybody's different, but there's things like Aura rings now along those lines. And, for me, Whoop, what I learned, one, hydration was central to my recovery score. I would get a much higher recovery score when I was good with my hydration. Two, sleep mattered, but more importantly was when I went to sleep and when I woke up, being somewhat stable in my sleep. The other thing that it taught me real quick was I need to eat a lot better, more often. So you'll see when I eat, I eat something poorly when I'm traveling, where it's a lot harder to control, my Whoop scores suffer.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
So I learned a lot about myself through this little device here to help prepare myself to be better or better, feeling better on a day-to-day basis. So I can perform.
So now, this is a touchy subject, but I'm gonna take it head on with you. You guys are paid to win.
We sure are.
And when players are not performing at their highest levels, because they're not hydrated, because they're not sleeping, because they're not eating well, you might lose games because they're not reaching their fullest potential. I'm trying to help these young kids and their parents understand, in your world, yes, you are 100% one of the good guys developing people. That's why I'm here. I love what you guys are doing. But at the end of the day, you wouldn't be able to keep doing that if you were losing at an epic level because your kids weren't getting they weren't accountable. So what do you do? What happens when kids do fall below that accountability here?
Well, I think you intervene.
Yeah.
And you try and help them.
Yeah.
You try and educate them first.
Yeah.
And I think the first part is education.
Yeah.
And then you try and, give them the resources to do it.
Yeah.
From putting nutrition throughout our facility here to hydration to, there's different ways that you can do it to help them.
Yeah.
Try and make it more convenient for them.
Yeah.
But I do think what you're talking about is deep down, there's got to be a drive to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that gets back to why you do it, right? Yeah. So I think the kids that are going to be invested in, I think there's a motivator. The motivator is beyond college baseball. A lot of times the motivator is to play in the big leagues. As a player, that's what's my motivator.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't quite talented enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that bared itself out.
Yeah.
But I needed that motivation every single day to make those decisions.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to try and educate them, and you're going to try and hold them accountable through all the different means that you can. If the players can hold each other accountable, that's where the goal is. Player led over coach fed, right? If they can't, the coach has got to intervene. Hopefully you never get to that point where you got to do some drastic work, take them out of the lineup, whatever it is, if they're a good player. But maybe sometimes that's the only way they're going to truly learn the lesson.
Right. Now, are you finding in this day and age that kids coming into this program are embracing this, or is this a culture shock? And they're like, I'll give you an example. My son, Zach, at UCF was in charge of the summer, the incoming freshmen, they're coming in early. He calls me up one day and he's so frustrated. He goes, Dad, these kids are not ready for this. And he goes, I just had a kid say to me, I can't believe they're making us be on time for every meeting. Now, that's not a knock at UCF. He just meant these kids, they weren't prepared. And then they came and they felt like this was like too tough. Like, or are you finding the kids you're bringing in, they're like eating this up?
Well, I think that the environment of that model that we're talking about, that, kind of I think we're specializing more, but I think this part has become more essential. Like the kids are better prepared for it now. There's better information out there through Twitter, you name it. There's more resources out there. There's more people that are in the field that are helping people. So I think the kids are better prepared for it than ever. Mm-hmm. But I still do think the ability to make those sacrifices to do it, the action piece to it, we're still not all the way there.
Yeah.
I think we got to continue to kind of make them understand. The education piece is key here.
Well, I mean, you're a super healthy guy, fit, athletic guy, but let's be honest, the culture of our country is not that.
It's fast.
Yeah.
It's convenient.
Yeah. Yeah. And these kids are growing up in that. So they got to literally be swimming against the current of all that to be a Division I athlete, most of them. And that's what I'm trying to do with my young clients, is say, look, you want something that very few people are going to get. Are you willing to start doing some things that very few people are willing to do? Yeah,
you're only as good as the sacrifice you're willing to make. Think about this. There's less opportunity in professional baseball. We shrunk it.
Yeah.
Right? We're down to a 20-round draft. Word on the street is we're probably going shorter than that.
Wow.
Here in the future.
I didn't know that.
Probably going to shrink the number of minor league teams, right? From 5 to 4. College baseball is 34-man rosters. We got all this money that's getting invested in college sports. It's $22 million lawsuit. You got all this money. Well, what's got to happen? That money's got to come from somewhere. What does it mean? College sports opportunities are probably going to shrink even more. It's harder and harder to do it. Are you willing to make the separate, do the things that can separate you, the sacrifices necessary?
Right.
Does it mean you're definitely going to get the opportunity? Nope. No. Still doesn't even mean that. That's the hard part.
I like to say you're at least swinging the odds more in your favor.
Giving yourself the best chance.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, this is probably going to take us to the end of this, but I want to apply a lot of what we just talked about now. We're talking about college, Division I, highest level, top athletes, top best players in the country. Now let's back down to all these kids that want to get here. Okay. We're talking about all these things, and me trying to help these kids. I know all these things and I want to help them start incorporating some of these things. So I'd like to kind of get in your head a little bit about the young kids developing for you. Like, can you give me some insight? Like things like, I mean, here's what some people say. They'll say things like, well, they're just kids, he's only 13 years old. He can eat burgers all day long and fries. It's no big deal. I personally kind of disagree with that.
Sure.
I like to start developing good habits early with these kids. So, what do you think about these kids coming through this journey? What could you tell them?
So first and foremost, every game I go to when I recruit a guy, I'm trying to figure out who the alpha is.
Who the what?
Who the alpha is.
The alpha.
Who does the game revolve around?
Yeah.
So the first thing I'll tell you is bring joy and passion to what you're doing. Those guys stand out. Those guys are energy multipliers. Those guys change the room in every room that they're in. Those guys will help push their teammates more than anybody. Figure out who the alpha is. Bring joy and passion to it. You got gold in this thing. You can't do that if you're not eating right, sleeping right, hydrating. It's hard to do that on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
So for me, at least, let's bring joy and passion back in this. Let's have fun doing this. Everybody says you spell fun, W-I-N. I get that. Like, that's how I spell it too, a lot of times. But guess what? There's a lot of fun inside of it. Can you show up on a day-to-day basis and bring joy and passion? Or do you only do that when there's a bunch of people in the stands?
Right. Boy, this just makes me think of another subject, though. There's kids I watch playing without joy and passion, and they're good players. But I think some of it's coming from pressure, early on pressure to be great, to be, a superstar, hitting home runs and never striking out, never making an error, never walking a batter. And it's coming from the parents. Have you experienced that? Like, have you seen that over the course of your years where you're seeing kids look a little more uptight than playing with passion and fun?
Well, without a doubt. I mean, we got finite chances we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So I do think without a doubt, there's a pressure in that.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you're always seeking your parents' approval.
Right.
They're the first, line of defense in terms of that approval.
Yeah.
So I think there is a pressure in that.
Yeah.
I have 4 daughters. I see it in my kids. My kids aren't baseball players,
Mm-hmm.
volleyball, basketball, soccer. I see it in that. There's a pressure in that. And I see it in other parents.
Yeah.
I think there's a challenge to that. I think, how do we encourage our kids to keep playing all the time? How do we encourage them to have the drive to do it, but not do it in a way that it puts so much pressure on it that they have to do it for you?
Yeah.
They
Right.
need to do it for them.
Right. Yeah. I like to tell kids and parents, if I'm watching you play, I'd love to see it look like a backyard wiffle ball game.
Yep.
Because everybody knows, well, at least most of us know how fun those games were. Nobody was uptight playing backyard wiffle ball.
Play baseball.
Yeah. Just go out there and play. It is a game of failure. We have the AA curve in Altoona, and I love watching when they do make mistakes. There's virtually no emotion.
Yep.
I'll watch the third base coaches, and I'm comparing them. No offense to the dad coaches out there coaching an 8-year-old team, but you see those guys coming unglued when a kid strikes out, right? He's 8. Some of the best kids in the world strike out. The coach just walks off the field with no emotion at all because it's just part of the game.
It's part of the game, and I think they understand the intent of it.
Yeah.
Kid makes an error. I don't think he didn't intend to make an error.
Right.
Kid strikes out. He didn't go up there saying, "Hey, I'm going to strike out here." I think there's an intent behind that, and you understand that. Now, you want to give them resources and means and help them the mechanics so that that can't happen.
Yeah.
But I think that the guys that do it at a higher level, you understand that.
Yeah. And they couldn't last 100 games in a summer if they were on an emotional roller coaster like that. So last subject, coaching. You are one of the top coaches in the country. There's probably coaches watching.
You're lying a little bit.
No. You absolutely are highly respected. I've watched you in action. I see you recruiting. So I'm not blowing smoke here. What, from a coaching standpoint, can you give our coach listeners any tips? What have you learned over your years?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of things I've learned over the years, and I'm far from knowing it all, but I think you got to care for your players. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that I struggle with, that I see a lot now, is in the world where coaches are making more and more money.
Yeah.
Coaches are rewarded in unbelievable ways.
Yeah. It's
a very, very rewarding profession. On top of that, I think they let it become, we sit here and say it's about the players and the kids, but then we let it become about us. Mm-hmm. So I think if I had one piece of advice for coaches, one is understand that your kid wants nothing more than to be good.
Yeah.
They just need help doing it.
Yeah.
And love them for it.
Yeah.
You can't get trust. You can't get, anything out of the kid if you don't care about them.
Do you think positive reinforcement? I struggled with this because sometimes I think I go a little bit more on the negative side. You can't do this versus you can do this better. Have you struggled with that, or learned through what works, what motivates kids more? The fear of loss, or the thought of gain?
Yeah. Well, I think you need to figure out what that is for your kid. I think all kids are different. Okay. I think some kids, they need the tough love. They need hard coaching. Some kids, you need to be conscious of that. Again, it gets to the delivery, right? The message is the message. Figure out what delivery works for the kid.
Right. Gotcha. That's awesome. Well, Coach, we have covered some of the greatest stuff. I know our listeners are so appreciative. I know I am super appreciative for you taking time. You guys are busy guys. And to sit down here with me and have this discussion, I couldn't be more thankful. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being here, and it was my pleasure.